And they describe their state of existence there as just being a piece of meat sitting in a window.
Mon rêve, c'est que nous arrivions à environ 500 entreprises légales au total, clubs privés et maisons closes.
And all the while, I told myself I was okay and I was fine.
Et ça n'a rien de sexuel pour la femme. En général, c'est un acte qui ne dure que 3 minutes. Hein?
We have to ask ourselves as to why do prostitutes take to drugs, especially when they are voluntarily in prostitution.
De klant en de prostituee kunnen alles doen wat zij afgesproken hebben. De auto die wordt hier tussen die 2 schotten geparkeerd. Ja, en dan kan de afwerking plaatsvinden.
I used to say, I don't mind having sex, but I've never been that tremendously in love that I would like to do it 40 times a day.
Moi, je sais que ce dégoût, je l'ai eu depuis le premier jour, depuis le premier client.
He put me on a street corner and gave me some condoms. I was immediately at risk of the most horrendous violence and abuse. I was raped, I was buggered, I was beaten, I was spat at. I had urine thrown at me from from residents in communities that I worked in.
I did not choose. If I could turn it all around, and if I could find someone who could help me get my identity back that was stripped away from me, I didn't say, you know what, I want to try the sex industry because I want to see what it feels like. That was not even in my mind.
I think women have to tell themselves they've made a choice to survive. I told myself for many, many years I was okay. I had to do that to survive the industry, and that was without a pimp. That was without a pimp, you know. So, and if women had more economic choice in this world, then perhaps, you know, they would not be choosing to be abused in prostitution.
Nous avons toutes vécu cette période où nous avons également dit c'est un choix, c'est un métier, c'est notre choix, on veut le faire, laissez-nous le faire tranquille. On a toutes connu ça, on l'a toutes vécu, on l'a toutes dit.
And I didn't choose. If I chose, it was because I chose to live. When I turned him down, I was raped and beat. I went to the cops and they said I had no rights. I went back to my pimp and told her what happened. She said, it's normal. This is what the women go through.
Et je lui ai demandé à la personne qui disait que c'était tellement bien, pourquoi est-ce qu'elle n'allait pas, je peux être vulgaire, hein, pourquoi est-ce qu'elle n'allait pas faire une pipe à un mec pour pouvoir se manger une tartine par après.
The John trick, these individuals, usually men, pay for the right to do whatever he desires to the supply. The John is usually the guy next door. He is someone's husband, brother, uncle. He may be a doctor, own his own business, be a painter, a carpenter. The John may desire to tie a woman or a girl up. He may demand not to use a condom. He may want to rape the supply over and over until his desire is met. When he is finished with the supply, he gives her or her pimp trafficker the agreed upon money, puts his suit back on, goes home, tells his wife or girlfriend he loves her, kisses his daughter goodnight, and goes to bed as though nothing has happened. He feels justified for what he just did. I never thought of how the supply feels. He paid for what he did.
And my self-image was molded through the fantasies of my clients, the men who bought me for sex acts. Often I and other women were lined up for inspection, to be chosen after examination by predatory customers. There was a time where John demanded me to be a Japanese prostitute, even though I was from Korea. I was taught to speak broken English because the Johns enjoyed the racist image of exoticness and my vulnerability.
We have to realize that prostitution is a form of trafficking and one of the worst violations of human rights, and it is also an act of violence. As long as demand remains strong, agents and procurers will always find vulnerable populations from other locations.
Je vais augmenter le chiffre d'affaires de 40% et je pense pouvoir y arriver en changeant les horaires d'ouverture, en aménageant les chambres autrement, en ouvrant un club pour les couples, le week-end, tout ça. Il faudra que je réoriente mes plans en permanence pendant les 6 premiers mois. C'est-à-dire réorienter là où c'est possible d'améliorer les gains.
En Cataluña, por ejemplo, se agruparon a todos los empresarios de los locales de Alterne y hicieron presión para que se legalizara para que se regularizara su actividad dentro de los locales de Alterne. Y principalmente lo que han conseguido es que, por ejemplo, las mujeres que estén en estos locales tengan que pasar por controles de sanidad. Y básicamente es esto, es una manera de poner un sello y de garantizar de que esos locales están protegidos, pero para nada sin proteger los derechos de la mujer.
Í Ísland begynte vi ganske alene, og egentlig så var jeg helt alene når jeg gikk ut mot den pornobranschen i Ísland, og jeg fikk trusler på livet. Jeg fikk trusler, mine døtre fikk trusler, og vi ble truet på alle måter, og jeg skjønte at dette var en kjempetøff gjeng som vi hadde med å gjøre. Og også den tausheten i samfunnet, at det var liksom, og det overbeviste meg sammen med alt det andre om at dette var bare en type seksualisert vold, fordi det var akkurat samme tausheten rundt prostitusjon som vi hadde hatt rundt incest i Island tidligere.
Légaliser la prostitution, ça veut dire aussi de reconnaître la prostitution et protéger le proxénétisme. C'est reconnaître le proxénétisme comme étant quelque chose de tout à fait normal.
But the pimps disappear in the legal systems and they become sex business entrepreneurs.
Whether you're doing that in a licensed brothel or whether you're doing that on a street corner, the consequences of being bought and dehumanized and made to feel like an object are the same.
I'm here to tell you that many individuals and agencies that want you to believe that legalizing or decriminalizing sex industries will make things better for women in the sex trade, but I was in the legal brothels of Nevada, as well as the illegal ones. I have witnessed and lost women in my life, and that was close to my heart. Making prostitution legitimate work and legalizing prostitution will not bring an end to the violence of women in the sex industry.
From escaping my pimp, I worked in brothels that were licensed in Edinburgh. There were heroin use going on downstairs. The man behind the desk who owned the premises was evil. He was brutal. He insisted that for certain clients we didn't use condoms because they were his friends. And if you didn't comply, you were sacked. Just over the bridge in Edinburgh was an horrendous scene of underground street prostitution. Nobody ever went into them premises to check that everything was above board. Nobody bothered. They licensed it and they left the women to continue to be abused. But in very plush and opulent surroundings. There was plenty of silk sheets and frills and trims for the men, of course. For the women, you got no rights whatsoever.
I think that one of the things about legalization is, in a nutshell, that it makes the harm to women invisible. And once you legalize it and once you institutionalize it, indeed, it does not protect women, it just erases the harm. It makes it as if there never is any harm, because the harm itself has been legalized. That in countries where you have legalized or decriminalized the sex industry, there are either no exit programs or there are few. Why are there no exit programs? Because why would you exit from something that has been made normal? Why would the state support that? Why would the state encourage it? It's not a crime. It's not a human rights violation. It's not viewed as violence against women. Therefore, voila, no exit programs.
Une annonce propose un emploi de collaboratrice pour sex club ou bordel, même sans expérience.
Vous décidez de votre plein gré d'exercer la profession de prostituée dans un endroit privé, ouvert au public, dans lequel on pratique professionnellement des actes sexuels.
Dans la prostitution, il n'y a pas de promotion sociale, comme je l'ai toujours dit en néerlandais. La seule promotion qu'on fait, c'est du trottoir à l'égout. Ça, c'est la promotion prostitution. Donc, je ne crois pas qu'on peut aller mettre la prostitution sur le même pied d'égalité à un travail comme n'importe lequel d'autre.
Det är det som är väldigt viktigt för mig. Just att vi inte ser kvinnor i prostitution som någonting annat än systrar till oss. Men det som också händer är ju att när man accepterar att män har rätt att utnyttja kvinnor precis när de vill, hur de vill och mot betalning, så påverkar det ju inte bara de kvinnorna och flickorna som är utsatta för prostitutionen direkt, utan det påverkar ju oss allihopa. Och ju mer prostitution accepteras som något alldeles normalt i ett samhälle, ju mer kommer vi ju allihopa, och det är vi ju redan, betraktas som någonting som man kan utnyttja.
Las mujeres están totalmente en una relación desigual y en relación al poder de los hombres y al poder patriarcal. Y realmente legalizar la prostitución sería, o sea, de alguna manera, dar legitimidad a esta situación.
It will legalize a new definition of slavery. And women who are from other countries, women who are trafficked, will bear the burden of the violence from those consumers who want more exotic women, more exotic sex, and more exotic forms of slavery.
Who are the ones who's got the choice in this market? Of course, it's the client. It's always the client that chooses. He's got his own choice, no one else in that matter. And we continue discussing the prostitute women and telling, well, are they forced or aren't they? Even though we have figures, we have a know-how since almost 4,000 years. So far, we haven't visualized the demanding side. Isn't this incredible? They always go free, the ones who's got the choice.
I don't want to attack women involved in prostitution. I want to attack the system of prostitution. And I think that when you spoke about the demand, nowhere do we talk about the demand, nowhere do we address the demand, and until we do that, we can take as many women out of prostitution, but there will always be a million more to step in the shoes of the vulnerable.
Ja, for det første så synes jeg det viktigste at vi setter ansvaret hvor det hører hjemme. Fordi at vi vil ikke ha noen prostitusjon i Island eller noen trafficking eller handel med kvinner hvis ikke det var på grunn av at islandske menn kjøper kvinner.
And I'm very surprised that many anti-racist organizations in Europe, many human rights organizations in Europe, many anti-globalization organizations in Europe are not looking at if trafficking and prostitution raise some racism against women, and why do anti-racist organizations do not attack this problem? And those who attack the globalization in Europe, the problems of globalization of money, why do not they attack the globalization of the sex industry in Europe?
Vi kan inte tillåta att de kvinnorna som befinner sig i prostitution inte får den solidaritet som vi har med kvinnor som är utsatta för annan mäns våld.
The National Rapporteur of Sweden says there are about 400 to 600 trafficked women victims in Sweden. In our neighboring countries like Norway, they got more than 5,000. In Denmark, approximately 7,000. In Finland, about 10 to 15,000. So I used to ask myself, are men living in Sweden more or less horny than our neighbor country citizens? Of course not. There has to be other reasons. And I'm absolutely positive by know-how today that this is because we have criminalized the buyer. Mm-hmm.
La Suède est un bon exemple. Je crois que s'il n'y avait pas eu autant de femmes en politique, il n'y aurait pas jamais eu cette loi non plus et cette compréhension du mécanisme qu'il peut y avoir en dessous sur toute cette violence et ce droit qui en fait ne doit plus exister à pouvoir disposer des femmes comme d'objets sexuels.
If we want to change and get equality in Europe, we have to also to solve the prostitution. Otherwise, we will be fighting against equal pay and we will fight against women's jobs every day. And then we leave this, which is a basic in all equality work whatsoever.
I'm not a sex worker, I'm a survivor. I represent many others like me, have survived the abuse, degradation, violence, and harms of prostitution. I particularly want to share my story with those who are still trapped in the brutality of prostitution. Women deserve real choices, not the choice between a brothel and escort service.
In 1995, it all came to a very sudden end when I turned on the local news, the television, and watched the local news, and my beautiful little cousin's face came up, and it was obvious that she was on heroin, and it said prostitute found dead in a house. She was 17, and the last time I'd seen her was at a family wedding when she was 6. She was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little girl who unfortunately fell into the arms of a pimp at the age of 14 and was murdered brutally at the age of 17. Fortunately, that gave me the strength to exit prostitution. It shook me into a very harsh reality, and it is 10 years since I have exited. I learned to live with the consequences of my experiences. Fortunately, I don't suffer abuse anymore. I don't suffer violence anymore. But millions and millions and millions of women and children all around this world suffer on a regular basis. And we have to act, and we have to stop this absolute appalling abuse of women and children now. Thank you.
Not for sale.